The discussions on this podcast are for informational purposes only. I cannot predict and do not guarantee that you will attain a particular result from the information provided. You should always seek professional assistance before making decisions in connection with the topics discussed. Welcome, everybody, to the Best of the Best podcast. I am your host, Maverick Levy. As always, this podcast is sponsored by the Brinks Armored Account, so thank you to that team over there. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome our second guest. His name is Lawrence Levy. Obviously, we have the same last name. He's not my uncle. He's not my brother. He is my father. He is the founder and CEO of Levy Associates, which is a national tax resolution firm. We also have a sister accounting firm underneath our umbrella called Levy Tax Professionals. So obviously, today's segments are going to be focused on taxes. So welcome to the show, Dad.
I'm loving that I'm here with my son on a work week day getting interviewed by my older son.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Is this the one you can like swear and stuff in?
Yeah, this one.
As you can see, it's like fucking cool, right?
Yeah.
All right. So it's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah. We could cover a lot of things today. I think to me, as your son, a place that I would like to start is you talking about your life and kind of
How good of a pickleball player I am?
how good of a pickleball player you are.
All right.
But also,
Who is that guy I was going to play pickleball with? The athlete guy? Gronk.
Yeah.
Gronk, if you're watching, I'm ready, baby.
Yeah.
I heard you're a decent athlete. I don't really know you because I'm not a sports guy, but Gronk, I'm ready to roll.
Let's see. Wait, real quick. Can you pull up a video of Gronk playing pickleball? I think he's got. All
right, well, you got to set that up with Gronk.
Okay, wait, hold on. Let's see. Is there any?
There's Tom Brady. There's the roast.
Yeah, but Gronk was like Tom Brady's right-hand guy. So he played a lot of obviously football, but then these athletes started buying pickleball leagues and
I'm
all
ready.
That good
so
stuff.
Please set that up. Like, you don't pay me to do this, so set me up to play with Gronk. I'm all right with that.
All right,
see. So what do you want to talk about?
Oh, let's see. I want to see real quick. No, but what I was getting towards, Ben, if you find it, let us know.
And then we'll put these cool headphones on.
Yeah,
so we look serious.
No, it's not so serious. There's a reason behind it. If we played the video out loud,
yeah,
do you understand what happens?
There he is, right. We can't hear it.
No. If you play the video out loud, then the microphones pick it up while you're talking.
Mic check one.
Doing the commentary. But no, I think a place, your life, I think is very inspiring to people that I meet. They don't really know your story a little bit. And something that you tell me all the time that sticks with me every day is your financial position you were in the day I was born, and you were building a house and all that good stuff. So I think just take a couple minutes and tell people your story, because I think it's a good one. And I think people resonate with it, more importantly.
All right. So my biggest inspiration in my life, by far, growing up, and even now, quite frankly, is my dad, your grandpa. I'm an only child. My dad and I were best friends. He worked nonstop. He worked probably more than I do, and I think I work a lot. I remember when I was young going into his office on a Saturday, and this is probably in the 70s, and he would have a transistor radio, like a little radio on his desk, and he would listen to the Detroit Tigers games. We lived in Detroit, obviously. And I would sit there on his couch, and there was no iPad, there was no nothing. I really wasn't the one that would read a book, so I wasn't sitting there reading a book. In fact, another thing, I've never read a book in my life. Not sure how I made it out of the private school I went to for kindergarten and 12th grade, but
never read one book?
Never read one book. Of Mice and Men, maybe the only thing I sort of glossed through was a poetry book, Where the Sidewalk Ends. If anyone wants to Google that one, that's about it. Shel Silverstein.
We know that one.
You know that one? No,
Yeah.
I've never read a book. Just didn't. Not my thing. I don't read now. I just never have. But growing up, I remember the days with my dad, and I remember just seeing him work. And my dad was always way cooler than I'm ever going to be, because he was British. So he was like the James Bond meets Winston Churchill was the way he described himself. Badass.
That's really
smooth.
The way he described himself?
Absolutely, and that's the way I will forever describe himself. He was this quiet, badass guy, wasn't really into fancy watches. He was more of a Timex guy, wasn't a country club guy, didn't drive a fancy car, just one of those laid back guys. Talking about books, he was happy reading a book under
Mhm.
a tree.
He always did crossword puzzles.
Crossword puzzles too.
Yeah.
Wasn't a boater. He would get sick looking at the bathtub water. Just walking in and seeing bathtub water, he'd get seasick. Wasn't any of those guys. We never did the things you and I do. Didn't go snowmobiling. Didn't ride motorcycles. Didn't scuba dive. None of those crazy things. But the greatest dad on the planet. So I always aspired to be as good of a dad as he was to me. And one of my fears in life, I don't like snakes, but one of my fears in life was not being able to be as close to my sons as I was to him. And I'm thankful that I am. So that's great for me. So that's my sentimental side. But as a kid growing up, I saw my dad work a lot, and I found taxes boring. Like,
Mhm.
I don't care about taxes. I was a kid. I wanted to go to law school. My parents got divorced, and I really thought that back then, at least, maybe now still, but I think that it was an unfair advantage in the legal system. I think men sometimes got the short end of the stick. Sorry for any women listening out there, but that's what I thought, and I still think that, and I'm entitled to my opinion. So I really wanted to go in that direction with my life, but I didn't. I ended up coming into the family business after going to Michigan State, and I saw a need to help the public that was having tax problems. I was always that fighter guy. I wasn't a drinker when I was younger. I've never smoked a cigarette in my entire life, never done drugs, never anything. I lived with a guy who was a drug dealer. I thought the DEA was going to knock down our door, literally. I'm still friends with the guy to this day. But anyhow, now it's legal, the marijuana thing, but never did any of that. Just was that goody two shoes. Had a bit of a temper on me, no question about it. But that was me. So now you come in and you want to level the playing field with the government. And so my father came up with this concept about tax resolution. And back then it wasn't a thing. It wasn't a billion-dollar industry that it is now. In fact, it was just basically born right around when you were born. The IRS came out with what's called the Revenue Restructuring Act, RRA, of 1998. Bingo, you're born. I figure, shit, I better get a job. I got a kid now coming. And I
How old were
literally,
you?
I was 7 years old when your mother got pregnant,
Okay.
and I was 28 years old when you were born.
Okay.
So I was on the younger side, but back then it was more normal, I think, to have kids in late 20s. And I don't literally think when you were born, I was in the middle of building a new house. And I had just finally been able to afford my first ski boat, like a little used 19-foot ski boat with the engine in the middle. Back then, water skiing was a thing. I'm like, oh my God, I got a kid coming. I got a house that's being built. Uh, and I think I had a couple $1,000s in the bank. So I really always wanted to keep on that work ethic. And that's what my father taught. So then the business launches.
Mhm.
The tax resolution industry becomes a thing. We take some ideas, and I say we, my dad and I took these ideas and started marketing and advertising. And back then, the IRS would issue liens, not a levy, and the local newspapers would publish them. And at the time, back when you were born, the legal newspaper by a county, so Oakland County back in Michigan, they were one of the clients, and my dad was the advisor to the bar association, as the story goes that I know. And we said, look, why don't we advertise to these people? And so we started doing some advertising. I was always a well-spoken guy, so that I got out of my private school education, and I think I take a lot of that from my father, incredibly eloquent speaker. And so we created a letter, and it basically said, do you have tax problems? We can help. And that letter, over the course of the past uh, 28 years almost, not quite that long, but we'll call it 25 to round the number because you're 25. That letter hasn't changed very much besides a sentence or two over the years. And then we also got into the nonprofit sector. So back then, IRS was targeting nonprofits. So my father knew a couple of Baptist ministers in the Metro Detroit area that got in trouble with the IRS because of the way in which they were being paid. And it was a whole sort of thing that
Mhm.
IRS was going after nonprofits. So before you knew it, we represented a lot of Baptist churches in Metro Detroit. Then we started advertising, and it was literally when you were in a baby seat, I would sit at the kitchen table and we would take labels on an old school printer. We would peel and stick on an envelope and peel and stick
Yeah. I mean, I would
the
do that when I
addresses.
was younger too. We would sit there and do
And
it.
that's how we started the marketing. And then eventually we started going out of state. And then the Florida thing came to life. And I've loved Florida for many years. And then the business just took off from there.
Mhm.
And I always say we're the oldest and one of the founding fathers in the tax resolution industry.
Mhm.
So I love the work. I love leveling the playing field. I always think that oftentimes the government is going to always be we're the big bad wolf out there and it's our way or the highway. And we've got a tremendous staff now that's comprised of attorneys, ex-IRS employees that push back on the system. And I can't tell you how many times, especially lately, the IRS is just wrong. The state is just wrong. They drop the ball. Not always, but enough. And if you don't push back, I think it's unfortunate because many taxpayers would get steamrolled over. So to me, it's such a rewarding feeling being able to help someone, and
Mhm.
our staff is so talented. What we've achieved now over the past 25 years is just, it's remarkable. So I work a lot. Plenty of times where I would be when you were growing up. You used to play tennis back in the day. I'd be at a tennis lesson watching you play because I was a tennis player back in my day. Now I'm a pickleball player with Gronk, and I would sit there and back then, there wasn't really an iPhone like this. At best there was the Blackberries, there was that walkie-talkie Nextel thing, and I'd be working and I'd be trying to watch you grow up, and then of course Jet comes around, who's now 18, and there were so many times where being self-employed, I didn't have that traditional 9 to 5 banker type hours. I would get up from dinner tables. I'd be on a vacation with you and I'd have to creep into a corner. We were at Disney. You're probably too young. And how do you find a quiet spot at Disney? I'm like hovered in like the entrance of a public bathroom to try and get a quiet spot to take a phone call. So being self employed is what I learned from my father. He never had a boss. I've never had a boss. Way back when I was 16, 17, I suppose I did have a boss back then. My dad said, "Hey, what do you want to do?" And I said, my side hustle back then. You talk about side hustle in some of these other episodes. I used to teach tennis,
Mhm.
so I would go around and I would teach tennis to whether it was the moms or the dads around town. And back then I don't remember, but it was decent money you were making back then. But then I did have a job. My dad said, get a real job. So he said, want to go to this lumber yard? And back then I was in great shape, and I was in as good a shape as you. Ripped arms. I mean, I had pictures of it. I was in great shape, and
Were
so
you in good shape or
I,
no?
I was in good shape. And so I go to the lumber yard, and I'm thinking like my vision is I'm going to be out in the sun. It's summer. I'll get a great tan. A little exercise. So I get there, and the person says to me, "All right, there's a bunch of wood over here, and move the wood from this side of the lumber yard to this side of the lumber yard." I'm thinking, really? Like, number one, I'm not getting paid that much to do this, and I had no concept of the money at the time. But my dad made me go out, or they asked him, he was friends with the guy who owned the lumberyard. I had to go get these steel-toed shoes, and I had the jeans on. Back then it was like Levi jeans, and I had one of those like wife beater with those white shirts on, and I mean, I was loving it. Well, an hour into it, I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, I'm like moving wood from here to here. This is nuts. So at lunchtime, I literally left and never came back. So then I decided I was going to go work at a camp, the same camp you went to. Give a shout out to Willoway Camp. Love them. Unfortunately, the owner of the camp just passed away about a year ago, but I'm still friends with his kids, and so big shout out to Willoway Camp if they can listen to this episode because they deserve it. So I worked there for a few years. It was great, and then I ended up DJing and working at a company called Joe Cornell, where you also worked at,
Yeah.
which was a big thing for like bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs and weddings, again, back in Metro Detroit. So eventually, I sort of skated along a little bit. and then said, shit, I got to get a job. At some point in time, I put a modeling portfolio together, which I really promote my pictures a lot
Yeah.
from back then.
I think that's the first thing you showed Olivia when she came over the very first time.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
talked
you're a
about it.
social influencer. I model, right? That type of thing. I told my wife, I really wish she would like take my modeling pictures and put them up on our refrigerator with the magnets. People don't really do that much these days. But so, I did a little bit of what I could. And then eventually when I had a kid, I figured, shit, I got to get serious.
Yeah.
And then after having one kid, now we had another, and Jet now is 18 years old, your younger brother. And the business just took off. And so now we're up to over 35 people that we have working in the office, and the growth has been great. It being self-employed,
Mhm.
I don't have a sick day.
Mhm.
I didn't even know what PTO was. Someone says, what's PTO? Well, the way I knew PTO was when you were young.
Parent teacher
That's what
organization.
I thought it
Yeah.
was. Parent teacher organization. I'm like, why ask me about parent teacher organization in a goddamn job interview? And they must have thought I was crazy, but I thought they were crazy. And then it turns out that they're asking me about paid time off. What is it? What is that? Like I didn't. Again, maybe I'm just so sheltered or so far removed from reality. So now the business has grown. Florida's been great, and I happen to love that. And I really have inherited, I think, the work ethic of my dad, which
Mhm.
I also see in you, which I also see in Jet. Whether it's you working as a valet, whether it's you working at Joe Cornell, you did an internship at a steel company flying drones, you worked at Quicken Loans or Rocket or whatever the parent company is there. And so I really think that work ethic really comes from the Levy genes. And
Mhm.
I will also give a shout out to my wife because she probably works as many hours as I do. One of the most loyal employees I've ever seen on the planet. Badass lawyer. Where do you find like a good-looking badass lawyer? They're very few, and she's all that. So, the work ethic that you've grown up with from both mom and dad has just been incredible. And a lot of parents, I don't think, have that.
Mhm.
And I think that sometimes that unfortunately has a flow-through effect to the kids.
Yeah.
So that's the background. Back in
Yeah.
my day, my father being from England, I had two choices: soccer, right? Although to him it was football, and it was that or tennis. Well, I went down the tennis path. You didn't. You actually went down the travel soccer path. Jet went on a totally different path with golf and planes and aviation and helicopters. But for me, it was always a tennis thing. So a lot of my youth was spent traveling to tennis tournaments. My parents would take a vacation somewhere, primarily Florida,
Mhm.
and I would go off to a tennis academy for a week or so over Thanksgiving, Christmas, spring break, and my parents would go to a local hotel. And so I think that's where I get my pickleball skills from. And we've been blessed with some pretty good athleticism in our side of the family, and so that's great. And now for me, it's fun and cardio.
Yeah.
And the balance of like work and play as I get older, I try and balance that, and that's sometimes challenging because the PTO, I don't get a paid day off.
Yeah.
I can't call in sick
Mhm.
to say this guy Lance, who's our COO, who's like a brother and a uncle to you. Hey man, I'm taking the day off today. Can you clock me in for my sick day? I've never done it in my entire life,
Mhm.
and I'm going to be 54 years old, and I've never taken a sick day. If I got the sniffles, if I have a cold, which I got a rock solid
Yeah,
immune
knock on
system,
wood.
and we're all knocking on wood here because
We're all crazy
we're a
superstitious. We're
superstitious
like,
family, like we're one of those, but I don't take a sick day.
mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's you're, and for our business, you're always on for your clients. And I think society has become where they want that instantaneous result.
Yeah.
You call me, Jet calls me, my wife calls me. You want that boom, boom, boom response. And I think society, because of technology, has become more accustomed and more almost an expectation of that instantaneous response. There's good and bad in that, right? The weekends aren't what they used to be. People will send an email over a weekend and you don't get a response. it's a little odd. I would say some of our staff responds over the weekends, and some when Friday at 5 o'clock hits, they don't, and you can't blame them. They want their own family time and their private time. But the world, I think in general, likes that responsiveness. So I think just the
Yeah.
work world has evolved over the past decades, where it's different than it was when maybe I was starting off at 25 years old in business.
Yeah.
I think you've got a lot of young entrepreneurs. So we had one of these meetings that you hold every so often this week, and we were talking about youth. So we've got a guy who's one of a younger age accountant, but he's got as much experience as some of the people that have worked in the office for over a decade.
Yeah.
And the youth to him becomes somewhat of a handicap, and we talked about that. So I was in that position like you were when my dad was helping out these churches. A lot of the churches wanted to grow and they had to go get financing. So I was that guy that would help put together their financials, and I would go and approach a bank. So here I am at 25 years old. I'm walking into a bank. It was Comerica Bank, which was a Michigan based, although I think they're technically Texas based, but a prominent Michigan bank, and saying, "Hey, our client, this church, they want to build. They need $1 million." And here I am, 25 years old. So you're talking, in 1995, you're talking this 25-year-old young punk walks in and asking for $1 million for a church. And church financials are slightly different because the church's financials are based upon the congregation or the parishioners on their tithes and offerings. No different than a synagogue for that matter. There's not a lot of recurring revenue. Now it's a little bit different because they'll have the preschool or the schools, and they have
Right.
a bit of a book of business of recurring revenue, but back then it was different. So I had to climb that ladder from the youth appearance, no gray hair, and I was walking in there into these meetings, and obviously now that's not a problem being my age. So that's some of the background, and now I thoroughly enjoy my pickleball. I sort of joked
We can
about it,
tell.
but it's social, it's fun, it's
Yeah.
cardio,
Yeah.
and I'm conscious of health. I do my best to try and eat healthy, not nearly as healthy as my wife, not nearly as healthy as you.
Yeah, here we go. I think
I
Oh,
found the
Ben,
pickleball clip for you
yeah,
guys.
Ben's got Gronk here.
all right.
Let's see it for a
Well,
second.
he's got a tennis elbow 'cause he's got something on his right arm. Man, I can
And his
take
left
you.
elbow.
Well, yeah, I don't see the left elbow in that shot, but there we go. Gronk, Rob. First name is Rob. Hey, Rob. Oh, that's a.
Never beat a quarterback, and they won't throw you the
Oh my God, no problem. Eli. Oh, hey.
Eli
and
Manning.
Gronk.
You know Eli Manning or no?
Yeah, he played shuffleboard.
Shuffleball. No, thank you, Ben, for finding that.
Yeah.
Based upon that video, I would say you have a
I got a
solid
shot
chance.
at Eli and Rob.
I would say you have a shot. But two things I want to pull out of what you said. The first thing, I guess a couple things, and we can open them up for discussion. But I think the first thing is that I think the instantaneousness that has become the standard in the world, whether it's because of the internet, I think Amazon has a lot to do with it, to be honest with you. Things that you would order or have to wait weeks for now come overnight. Even the same day it can be at your house.
Mhm.
However, I think in the industry in which we work in, for example, taxes, I think it can be a hurt. And the reason for that is the things take time to do. And I think the client, I heard you on the phone in the office yesterday, right? Telling a client, we're not going to be able to have this done for you. You gave us an Amex with 25 pages per month of transactions, and you want us to go and get the books, by the end of the day. It just can't happen. But they want the instantaneousness. And I think it becomes almost a hurt sometimes where people, they say good things take time. And I believe that. However, there's a balance, right? Like being effective and being timely and responding timely is one thing.
I think that people don't understand how long it does take to do a complicated set of books. I don't think people really understand that it's not just a snap of the fingers. Look, to do a tax return that's one W-2, yep, that can get knocked out pretty quickly. But the client yesterday that's got multiple bank accounts, significant amount of volume and transactions.
Yeah.
Even though in their mind they said, well, we've got pages and pages of of Home Depot charges, pages and pages of this charge. So there's maybe not a lot of variation. So maybe there's some logic to what they're saying. But
Yeah.
I think oftentimes clients, their expectations are that things take not as long as they should, but to the point of technology and the responsiveness in the tax resolution industry. I'm that guy, by the way. One thing I lack is patience. I'm just not a patient guy. I don't like to wait in a line. You made me go to some sporting event. Gronk and Eli, it wasn't football. You guys are football guys. It was a basketball game.
Yeah.
And when we left, it was like literally gridlock, and I was losing my mind.
The
So
parking
I
lot.
don't have any patience to wait in line. So with the IRS, nothing happens quickly. Our clients, they come to us and their bank accounts get levied, right? Our last name. Oh my God, can you get it released today? Well, number one, in today's IRS world, you got to track down the IRS revenue officer who issued the levy. Don't ask me why, but I'm putting this out there, and I'd love for anyone to hear this. I cannot tell you how wrong, how stressful, how frustrating, how just horrific it is, the lack of response by the government, both federal and state. The days go by without a return phone call. So the client had their bank account levied. They're trying to meet payroll. We're calling the IRS person, 5 times a day, maybe 5 times an hour. Still can't get in touch with them. Try and track down their manager. They don't respond. The client then comes back and says, "What the hell? I hired you. I'm paying you. You're telling me you can't reach the person?" It's absolutely insane. So now you get to the expectation of the instantaneous fast result. Doesn't happen. Another scenario is you hear the ads that we advertise offering compromise at a normal pace, not fast, not slow. It's a solid 12 months to get a case from start to finish. And clients think because of these other ads on TV, oh my God, it's easy, fresh start. That's all nonsense. All those ads you see out there, fresh start. Fresh start what? Fresh start if you get in an argument with your wife, you want to have a fresh start the next morning. That's what fresh start is to me. So I think the expectations need to be set in the beginning.
Yeah.
And responding to an email or a text is important. But a lot of things have changed, and our industry in taxes has changed. Refunds don't come as quickly as they used to. Don't know why, just is. Amended tax returns don't process. Right now, a friend of the family who we pass business back and forth, he's a CPA, he's got a client, and the client has a refund of, I don't know the number, it's a big number, $140,000. And I think it's a state issue though, and the state is saying it's gonna take 42 weeks, almost a year, to respond back. It's insane. So the client says, that's nuts. The CPA who referred us to the client says, that's crazy. One of our employees used to work for this particular state. She's pressing every button that she can, going into her Rolodex to try and expedite things. But look, it's politics. No different than trying to get a permit expedited to redo the roof on the office building in Florida. We've been waiting a month already for it. So what do?
Yeah.
I call a politician in Florida to try and see if they can help. So I think society has become more demanding of their instantaneous response, which then also leads to the self-employed person who's constantly looking at their phone. Right? And then one of the other questions to put out there is, what's rude? So if I'm in this interview with you right now and my phone rings, which it did, is it rude or is it not rude if I'm multitasking?
Rude.
Okay, you say it's rude. So there was this article in the newspaper I read 5-6 years ago, and it was a cartoon, and it was a bunch of bankers, and they were texting, under the table, 2 guys. There was probably 10 people at the table in the cartoon, and the older generation, which is funny, you say rude because you're the younger generation. The older generation said, "What the hell are you guys doing? You're not paying attention to the board meeting." The younger guys were texting back and forth to try and close,
I've seen this
$1 million
before.
deal.
Yeah.
So, multitasking, you think it's rude. If a client's in the office and their cell phone rings, I actually think differently. I'm like, hey, take the call. If it's business, it may be more
That's a different
important.
story. You're talking about the cell phone ringing.
I understand, or just a text. But
Yeah.
I go to a close
No, the
buddy.
reason that I'll tell you right now that it's rude, and I think my generation is going to start to be more vocal about it, is because my generation has lost the human element. No one likes to sit face to face. No one wants to talk to each other. They want to talk on the phone.
I
And I
agree with
think
that.
people are getting sick of that. And so the face to face human interaction of actually getting intimate and being in front of someone and having that conversation human to human, I think is coming back, and people want that and are longing for that more. And the reason I think it's rude is because I personally, and there's actually a guy that's been on this show, I believe his name is Dave Crenshaw, if I'm not mistaken, Ben, if you want to search that up. I believe he's the author of a book, The Myth of Multitasking. And I had him on the podcast a couple years
Oh yeah, I
ago.
remember yeah, you did have
And
some guy.
and his whole methodology is that you can't multitask. And I take literally from what I learned in that episode and implement it into my life, because I do
Mhm.
not believe, I believe you can multitask. I believe it makes you inefficient.
There's some logic in that, but uh,
But
it's unfortunate that
yeah,
the technology. I agree with you. I think like kids, like your brother, me back in my day, if I'm gonna get a girl's phone number, I'm gonna call her, but I'm gonna go on a date. Now, even one of my former college roommate, who's a doctor, a very talented mommy makeover plastic surgeon,
yeah.
breast augmentation, tummy
He's
tucks,
been on the podcast,
Botox. Oh, he's been on the podcast. Yeah, all right.
the old version, but yeah.
Right. And so he's trying to go on these dates, he's meeting people, and so as opposed to picking up the phone and calling, he's texting.
Hmm.
I mean, that's just crazy to me. So I do agree that the technology or your head bent down texting,
Yeah.
it drives me crazy when we're at dinner, just as a family, and someone's texting on the phone in a business setting
Why does that drive you crazy?
because I want to spend time with my family.
Exactly. That's why it's rude if you're in a meeting and someone is on their phone or you're talking to someone, because you want that time. That time is short. That time is valuable.
Yep.
Your time's valuable. My time's valuable. So, yeah.
I agree, and maybe I give it a little bit of deference just because it's a business setting, but I could see your point, and I'm good with it. And it's your podcast, so I'm the guest.
Well,
But that's
I
okay.
encourage the pushback. What do you think is the biggest challenge you've faced in your life? Personal, business, emotional, psychological? And
Uh,
I'm asking you to be vulnerable here, obviously.
no, no,
But,
I don't mind being honest about it. I worry about my kids,
mhm.
right? I worry about my
That's not
sons.
a challenge, though. What is a challenge?
A
The divorce
challenge.
from my mother. Like, what has been the biggest challenge in your life when you look back and you're like, wow?
I think the scale of the business. I think scaling the business it's been a challenge that we've been successful at.
Hmm.
So divorce from your mom, it's so far in the past that it's like a different world.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it was scary because you were two and it was an unknown, but I got super lucky and fixed up on a blind date shortly thereafter,
Hmm.
and it forever changed my life for the better. So the divorce was scary because I had to
Yeah.
start
I
all
just use that
over.
as an analogy.
No, no, I know
No.
that doesn't really resonate. I would say the business,
Hmm.
right? I feel that I'm responsible for 35 families,
Hmm.
and I'm responsible to make sure that they have a healthy paycheck,
Yeah.
and I make sure that the business flows like normal.
Hmm.
So I think that's been a challenge, and lately it's been phenomenal. So that's been a challenge. I think that I probably need to get my blood taken more often, health wise, and be more conscious of my health.
Yeah.
So that's something that I talk about. I think it's a normal thing for a 50-year-old
Yeah.
person, guy or girl.
Yeah. For
But
sure.
challenges. My last challenge was when my dad got sick.
Hmm.
Right, that was probably one of my biggest challenges when he got sick.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful that it only lasted for 90 days.
Yeah.
So I had 90 days of hell, and then he passed away after 3 months. So I think for most people that have loved ones that have drawn out illnesses,
Hmm.
mine was a short window, and if it had to go down like excuse me, if it had to go down like that, I was happy that it went down in 90 days and ended like that. But that was pretty challenging. That's 13 years ago.
Yeah.
So it seems so long ago, but it's literally 13 years ago from next month.
Yeah. And you talk about before I ask you what I was going to ask you, talk about challenges and in business, I'm saying in scalability in business. And for those of you that don't know, right, what does Maverick do for a living? Maverick owns the Maverick Teams consulting firm by trade, but really own and operate a couple different businesses, whether I'm minority owner or majority owner. It varies, but I play more so an advisor role within every one of them. And I like to take what I learned in one avenue and place it in a different avenue. But literally, the reason we had the call with all the partners of the Maverick Teams yesterday was because honestly, I did a lot of it for you because I see the stress that you have. It is not only within our business, right? It's within every business that I see and I touch and I feel. And I think a lot of business owners don't get to sit and talk with other business owners often about the problems they incur.
No, I agree. There's some groups that a buddy of mine from high school is in Florida, like business networking, or I can't think of like young professionals, but he's not so young
Yeah,
anymore.
but let me even say something to that point, and I get that's what they talk about. There's a difference to talking about the problems within your business to randoms versus people we know and that we consider almost like family because our family is so small that you're willing to open up more. Because you're
Yeah,
talking to someone random and it's almost like you don't want them to think that there are these challenges inside your business because
right,
it's almost a weak point.
right.
So you don't focus on it as much.
Right. No, I agree. I thought that call this week was healthy. It's nice. Like everyone's got their own challenges in the business.
But they're similar.
They're absolutely similar. But those are challenges for me because we need the staff to make sure the work gets done, to make sure the clients are happy, to make sure the whole machine works. So talk about challenges. That to me is stressful when we've got not a full crew running, or we're
Yeah.
running at less than a full crew.
What do you think of my generation, the younger generation? I mean, you get to see a little bit of it, obviously, because we have me who's 25, you have Jet who's 18, which, at this point in my life, it seems like our age gap isn't as big as it is, right? That happened, I think as time goes on, it's when he's younger and I'm older.
hmm
When we're kids, more so, it feels like that age gap is big.
In my opinion, I think the biggest thing that I see is I can see extremes. I can see an extreme of a entrepreneurial spirit, aggressive, driven, motivated, want to make something with their life. Could be as a W-2 employee, it could be self-employed. That's an extreme.
Mhm.
I also see the lazy ass, don't give a shit, slow walking, slow moving, the cadence, the pace. It's almost like wake up, wake up, wake up. And you almost want to drag that person. And I see it of your friends.
Mhm.
I see it of his friends. I see it of people slightly older, my generation too. So
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things though that I see is I don't even see anywhere in the middle. Like I either see you got it, you're motivated, you're a go-getter, or you don't.
Yeah.
And there's really no in between there. I don't see as many of the I want to go to law school, I want to go to med school. I don't see that. Back to pickleball, I see a buddy of mine that I play pickleball with. His daughter scored perfect on SATs or ACTs, I can't remember what it was, and she went to like I don't know Duke or Cornell or some super Ivy League, super smart girl, and she can't get a job. She's in the aerospace industry, smart. I text with her. She's trying to ask me a question, but I see those extremes of motivated versus not. Her situation is different. Just she wants a specific job and she can't find it. But I can't tell you how many people. I mean, a lot of your friends. Because this is live, I'm not going to name the names I really want to name right this very second. But a lot of people are lazy asses and do nothing with their lives,
Yeah.
and it's frustrating. But
I would say I've distanced myself from
absolutely,
those
you have,
people.
and that's good. And to me, when it's funny you bring that up. I actually like to associate myself with smart people, right? I feel more empowered.
Yeah,
I
you never
feel
want to be the smartest in
more
the room.
motivated. I love it. I love ideas. I love having like these dinner meetings and the networking.
Mhm.
But that's what I see. I see your generation. I was talking to Jet at dinner the other night, and it's like this one can't get work, and this mechanic didn't show up today, and you can't get this fixed, and this one's shorthanded, and this staff is shorthanded. I don't get it. Where are all the people in the world that need to work, and how are you surviving not working? It makes no sense to me. And hopefully your generation is going to change that. I just don't know.
Stat here, millennials are the least engaged generation in the workforce. Only 30% are engaged, while 55% are not engaged, and 15% are actively disengaged.
Wow. Yeah, I think people say the statistics one more time.
Millennials are the least engaged generation in the workforce. 30% are engaged, 55% are not engaged, and
55% are not engaged.
and 15% are actively disengaged.
See, I have a big problem with my generation because I think that, right, like I'm on that border, I think, of Gen Z and millennial. I always get confused.
I don't
with it.
even know what that is.
But to be honest-
Millennial goes 1980 to 2000.
1980,
So we're on the
2000.
late end of that.
Of right, that's why we're on the cusp of
Exactly.
millennial and Gen Z. This is my problem with my generation. I agree, there's extremes. It's one way or the other. But I think this will dabble into the politics a little bit, which I don't necessarily, we can dive into it, but I don't need that to be the focal point. The inability to agree to disagree is insane.
I don't know what to do, but someone's about to knock at the door.
Who is it?
Patrick.
Oh, what's he doing here?
He's supposed to do some handyman stuff, and I need to pay him.
Interesting. All right, we can take a
can
break.
pause.
Yeah, we'll take a quick break. Let's talk about something that could change the way you handle your money. Imagine a world where your bank account is as fortified as an armored truck. Welcome to the Brinks Armored Account, the last debit card you'll ever need. With at least one monthly deposit of $500 or more, you can say goodbye to monthly fees and hello to money management that pays you back. With the Brinks Armored Account, you get cash back on your purchases, access to over 100,000 ATMs with one free withdrawal per month, and an optional overdraft service that respects your boundaries. But that's not all. Brinks takes security as seriously as you do. Enjoy peace of mind with ID theft protection and purchase assurance, guarding your transactions and new purchases against damage or theft. It's not just an account, it's an armor for your finances. Qualify for early direct deposit, and you can receive your paycheck or government benefits up to 2 days faster. It's your money. Why would you wait? Step into the future of financial confidence with the Brinks Armored Account. Visit brinksarmored.com to learn more or connect with Brinks Armored on social media. Brinks Armored Account. It's not just safe, it's Brinks safe. Right. We're back, guys. Sorry. We had a little roof leak here that we've been dealing with on set. But no, I think I was talking about my generation and my problem, the ability to have a conversation and not be able to agree to disagree is the biggest problem I see on a day-to-day basis, whether it is politics or whether it is something as simple of where we want to go or what we want to do. It's like, just compromise sometimes. Not all the time. You don't have to compromise all the time, but sometimes you have to and you should.
Mine's easy. I always tell my wife, I don't care where we go eat, but I want an ambiance. I'm not a foodie guy, so I want to go. There's a local place that's got a piano, old school Italian. Don't care about the food, but I like the ambiance. I like the piano.
Yeah.
I like some music in the background.
Yeah, but I think
compromise is my middle name.
The work ethic of my generation is sad and frightening. People don't want to do anything, which is insane to me. But I think,
lazy.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily know if it's their fault. I think it more so could be because of the phones. The phones give you this false dopamine of going on, scrolling mindlessly. I mean, you could end up scrolling for an hour and you're like, whoa, that was an hour I sat there and scrolled.
Right, but what are you scrolling at? Like for me, when I'm in the bathroom, I'll sometimes scroll, right? I think most people do, right? So, but I see cool shit. What comes up, I see, yachts and jets.
Yeah, but
and
you're
watches.
spending a fraction of your time doing that.
I agree. No,
they're spending the entirety of their day.
Well,
doing
that's
that.
a problem. They need some counseling for that.
It's not even counseling. I think it's a purpose. And I think that's where it stems from. And that's what I was getting to is having a purpose, right? What is your purpose every day when you wake up? What is your goals? What are your goals? What is your goal of the day? What is your purpose? What
I
do
want
you
to
want
make
to
my
achieve?
wife happy. That's my goal I wake up for. Michelle?
that is why I went and did the internships. I think my first job per se ever was
Joe Cornell?
no, my first job was the fucking the guy that never paid me.
Oh, Nick.
Nick,
Just
yeah.
knock on his door. He owes you $50.
He does. No, I think he owes me like $100 still to this day.
Yeah, you bag
and
leaves.
he lied. He lied and said that he left it under
Nick,
the mat.
You're still there, baby.
Is he still there?
Yeah,
I drove through the
plus
neighborhood
interest.
the other day.
Absolutely, he's still there.
Yeah, no, but
First house on the corner.
that was the first time I was like, I'm gonna do lawn. Did it. I even remember I took the car. I was like 10 years old. I took the car and it wasn't perfect like I liked it. So I took the car and I blocked the road in the neighborhood so I could have the headlights shine on it so I could finish the job. And I'll never forget, I never got paid. And then I went on to go DJ and dance at bar mitzvahs and then internships. I think I did a reverse mortgage company at Quicken Loans. I worked at a personal injury law firm in Los Angeles, Koreatown. I did Eat and Steal, the drone. I did a little
Valet?
I did a little social media for Derek Damgard, the jet guy, like way back in the day. And so I did all these different things and I got to see people that were miserable, people that were happy. But going back to what I was saying is I got to experience all of that at the time that I got to see this huge difference in wealth, in not only wealth, but how that wealth adds into the personal life, adds into the emotional aspect of things, adds into the resources. How easily can you access X, Y, or Z? And that's what really like set it aside for me was, okay, I have this opportunity. I don't ever want to be one of these kids at the time, we were all kids that just didn't have any goals, didn't care to do anything, didn't care to work hard. And I think, I never really tried hard in school. Like school was always challenging for me.
Me too.
And
Not for Jet.
Not for Jet.
For me and you, it was.
Yeah, very challenging for me.
Me too.
But I was able to learn that listen, you and I differ on this very much. I don't think that unless you want to be that lawyer, doctor, whatever it is that's going to require a graduate degree, I'm going to give my children the option whether they want to go to college or not, dependent upon the type of person they are at the time they would go. I don't see the value in college. I don't see the value of spending $60,000, $50,000, $40,000 a year to go and learn of how to run a business. Because guess what? You didn't learn shit. The way you learn is by actually being in the business. Sure, you can take what you applied and try and put it into the business, but at the end of the day, it's the firsthand experience that builds the character and the background to run the business. But what I think school does teach is two things. Number one, it's social skills and being able to communicate efficiently and effectively with someone else. But I think the second thing is that it teaches you what you get out is what you put in. If you're willing to spend hours and hours and hours studying and learning and memorizing on flashcards and note cards, sure, you're going to probably do well on that test. However, I think that gets overlooked a lot of the time where people, they get good grades just so they can get into college. But if they really saw the lesson there of you put in the work and look what you got out, well, you could apply that to anything in life.
Right. So I always people talk about Country Day. I went to Detroit Country Day. There's a lot of country days out there. This one obviously was
just so people know that's a prominent private school from K through 12th grade.
Right. So kindergarten through 12th grade. I didn't have any public school interaction at all. So that's all I knew.
Yeah.
But I think that Country Day didn't teach you the social skills.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you were more outgoing, they really kept you in what I call a Country Day bubble. Mm-hmm. I didn't send my kids there. You actually wanted to go to private school.
Yeah, we thought about it. I didn't go
that was your choice. It wasn't
Yeah.
mine. I actually was happy for you to go to public school. But I think that Country Day in particular, they kept you in a bubble. If you excelled academically or athletically, you were the king or the queen, which I thought is wrong and still is wrong. And so I think that you learn your personality as you go. Some people will pick up on it from their family environment. Some people won't. Some people grow into it. But I think if you're that quiet introvert, you're always going to be that quiet introvert and maybe even be socially awkward. But I think that also then parlays itself into life. Like in our world of tax resolution, especially now, our power of attorney staff probably has to be positioned and postured more aggressively than they ever have been. So when we interview, I don't want to hire that timid, smart person from a Harvard or a Yale. That's not what we want, right? We want someone who's going to be more aggressively postured, because the nature of our business these days, it's always more aggressive than it ever was.
Yeah.
So our level of pushback has to be here compared to where it was here years ago. And so I think your personality of how you handle yourself in the job setting, to me, another component is your ability to handle customers, to talk to clients, how you interact with your clients.
Yeah.
The third piece is how you interact with your coworkers. And I think that goes to the personality. I don't want that deaf mute, that classic accountant that's going to be a pencil pusher with a pocket protector thing. I don't want that. I don't want the attorney. I don't want the ex-IRS guy that's going to be timid and that's going to be sitting behind a desk. I want someone who's going to be forceful.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have to have the ability to interact with a client, and you got to have the ability to interact with your coworkers. So, in our industry, bedside manner, now that's more of its common. The doctor was an asshole. That there was a shitty bedside manner. Well, it goes in any business these days. Customer service and the smile on your face. I happen to be friends with some people that are in the hospitality industry and in the hotel world. And that's a good example. They're there to make your life happy. They're there to almost try and say no. We don't have the luxury of that. We have to be there to give the highest level of customer service, but we also have to give you that reality check. And some of the things that we say, like with the IRS, if you've got a sick family member, you've got a dog that's sick, you've got a cat that's sick, you're trying to be a good dad or good mom, or you're trying to pay for your kid's college or your kid's private school education. Well, as a dad, I respect you. As a mom, I respect you. But IRS, they don't give a shit about that.
Yeah.
They just care about how it is. And so for us to try and translate that to the client, you talk about challenge, that's a challenge as well for us to try and explain just what the rules are. And sometimes those rules are tough to digest, not only for us, but then to also regurgitate that and translate that to the client. So, and these days in our industry, it's, circling back to the whole responsiveness, it's mind-blowing to me that the government doesn't respond. And when they do, it's at their time, not our time.
Yeah.
And when they do, God forbid you try to call this IRS person, for the past week, and my power of attorney in the office, one of the lawyers of the ex-IRS agents, they're in the bathroom.
Wait, let's guess for a second. What do you think the number, let's do a percentage of consumers that actually get through and are able to talk to the IRS when they call by themselves? What number do you think that is?
What's the percentage?
Yeah. Of all of them that call, what percentage get through and talk to someone? What would you say?
3 out of 10, 30%.
30%. All right, Ben.
This says in 2021, the call volume nearly tripled and only 11% of calls reached a customer service representative. They received a record 282 million calls, but only 32 million of those were answered.
So I think a lot of that, Ben, fact checker Ben, was out of a result of COVID and the stimulus and PPP stuff and all that going on. They've certainly tried to step up their game a little bit with the wait times on the phone. But I'm not even talking about what Ben just Googled there. I'm actually talking about a local IRS person or a local state collections person who just doesn't pick up the goddamn phone. Barely ever can you find someone. I would say literally 1 out of every 100 calls that our office places.
But don't you think that's because of the industry? Like, who the fuck wants to work for the IRS?
Oh, I think there's plenty of people. Actually, I think plenty of people like the government job, no matter if it's federal or state. I think the benefits, the longevity, the tenure, the retirement benefits, I think a lot of people actually like it, to be honest with you. And I think some people are also on power trips, which is sad. I think people have no authority in their own home, as my father would say, and they flex their muscles.
To say that all the
You have
time.
no authority in your own home. Are you flexing your muscles on the job site? My father's other thing was if there was a nasty IRS person, he would say, "Excuse me, but do you have any plans this weekend?" And the guy would say, "Mr. Levy, it's none of your business." And my dad, with his English accent, he would say, "You know what? I'm looking here in the newspaper," which is also, how many times you ever read a newspaper, but I'm looking in the newspaper, and tomorrow morning is Saturday, and there's charm school. It's from 9 till 12, and it's only $99. I'm going to treat you to charm school. That was my dad's polite way of saying, like, fuck you, you're rude.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And I have to tweak that these days. Oh, there's an online charm school now.
Yeah.
Would you like to sign up for $99? There's an online one, or watch this YouTube video. But it's so frustrating because the clients are calling, asking us, "Have you heard? Have you heard?"
Yeah.
Some it's because it's a reasonable amount of time. Some are because they're in stress mode because their bank accounts got garnished and they got no money to pay their staff, and they're feeling the heat and the pressure. But it's mind-blowing to me, the lack of response. Then we have to be delicate with that balance. So the delicate balance is, do we tattletale? "Hey, revenue officer so-and-so, you've not returned the call to one of my staff members." So now we're going to go to their boss. So now we're tattletaling on
And it's
them.
going to piss them off.
Potentially. So we have to do a polite tattletale, and we have to tap dance around the tattletale. It's crazy what's going on lately out there.
Yeah.
And the amount of frustrations. We currently have Greg, GT is his name, another guy named Greg. He was an ex-IRS appeals guy. We have Anna, who's an ex-IRS revenue officer from Florida here. So we've got 3 ex-IRS people. We used to have Claire, but she retired to be a grandmother. And all 3 of them in particular. And then we've got Jim, we've got Bianca, we've got Danielle. So like the 6 of them, they're 3 attorneys, Bianca, Jim, and Danielle. They all deal with IRS issues, right? In the collection world or in the audit world. And every one of them shares the same frustration that the lack of response, the lack of a timely response, it's mind-boggling, mind-blowing. We can send faxes. We can send, you send an e-fax these days, right? Everyone knows what an e-fax is. Even I do, and I'm an archaic guy. I still use my AOL account sometimes. I know what an e-fax is. It pops, the fax pops in to your account, to your email account. And just the lack of response, it's crazy. Like, how do they get away with that? Like, how's that just okay?
This is the government.
Right, which I think is so wrong on so many levels, which takes me all the way back full circle to why we do what we do.
Yeah.
We're there to level the playing field. And there's no magic wand, there's no secrets, there's no tricks, there's no fancy moves, and it's not a game. And that's the other thing, and this always, I'll never forget, one of these IRS guys, I almost said ex, but he's still there. It's crazy. When my dad was around, he made a comment to my dad that I'll never forget. He said, "I've got your client in checkmate." And my dad says, "Wait a second. To you, this is a board game? To our client, this is their life." The guy's married. He's got a wife. He's a husband. He's got kids. That's just crazy that you literally think this is a chess game. You got someone in checkmate. The fact that you say he's still around today, bad guy, by the way, I think. And I'm so thankful that I actually don't do that part of the business, because I just think they're so wrong on so many levels. But can you imagine that these IRS people, they think that it's a game, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's lives that you're dealing with, and unfortunately, our clients, they get themselves into a jam. Some are more plausible jams. God forbid it was an illness, a cancer, a heart attack, a death in the family, natural disaster. We had a lady that was impacted by a hurricane a few years ago and lost all her records. And some are, I had a client that walked in, a nice guy. You know the client, and he walked in the first day. He said, "I'm just going to tell you straight. I want to put all my 4 kids in private school. I did. I want to put all my kids in college. I did." And he owes the IRS millions of dollars. And I said, "Look, as a dad, I get it because you want to do right by your kids, but
Yeah.
you know, you blew off your IRS obligations, and now you got yourself in hot water.
Yeah.
And so some of the reasons are, you know, gambling. Some of the reasons are, and some are just scared. You get you bury your head in the sand. No different than, you know, someone's scared to go to the doctor because they know they got something wrong with them. It's the same thing. But now we have to explain that to the IRS.
Yeah.
So a client comes in and hasn't filed their taxes in 4 or 5 years, and they got a business. So you got Mr. Smith that comes in. He's got Mr. Smith's Bar and Grill. Well, he's got, let's call it 4 years of taxes. So 48 months worth of bookkeeping to do. Well, that's going to cost something. He's then got to file 4 corporate tax returns. Well, that's going to cost something. He then has to file 4 years of personal returns. Well, that's going to cost
And there's
something.
the emotional element to it as well.
Right.
Which
right.
people
And-
don't get.
Right. And so now, not only does he have to gather all these records, but he's still got to run his restaurant. He's still got to be a dad. He's still got to be a husband. He's still got to be a son to his elderly parents. He's got a life outside of his tax problems. And how do we explain that to the IRS or to the state?
Yeah.
Well, their answer is, well, if he would have filed his taxes every year and done monthly bookkeeping, he wouldn't be here. Well, he didn't. Well, our response is, well, that's what you do for a living. It's that delinquent taxpayer.
Yeah.
That's what you do for a living. So the fact that you've got a delinquent taxpayer out there, revenue officer so-and-so, state revenue officer so-and-so, that pays your bills. If it wasn't for those delinquent taxpayers, you wouldn't have a job either, quite frankly, nor would we. That's just what we do.
Right.
Are you going to harp on that in the bankruptcy world for the bankruptcy attorneys? You think the judges in the bankruptcy, if bankruptcy wasn't a thing, the bankruptcy judge wouldn't exist, the bankruptcy lawyer wouldn't exist.
Right.
Right? It makes no sense. The thought process lately, it's so frustrating, but that's why we love what we do. And that's why our staff, those 6 people in our office with their admin, like that team of, we'll call it 10 or 11 people, is massive. And we are the oldest family-owned firm in the country that does civil tax collection work.
Yeah. No, for sure.
And I will tell you that in the past couple of years, especially, and I hate those since COVID nonsense and the COVID this and the COVID that. It's not my thing. But since COVID, right, I think the IRS has taken a far more aggressive approach.
Yeah.
My conspiracy theory, if you ask, is I think that the government gave out a lot of money, PPP money, EIDL loans. You know, click, and you get $100,000.
ERC.
Right? Employee retention credit. So imagine if I'm the IRS guy. This is just my theory, but again, since we've got ex-IRS people, we hear a little bit of feedback from friends of friends of friends, and retired friends of friends, and so they're just bent up, right? They're a little bit angry, and I will tell you.
Well, there's a lot of money to collect, I think, is my conspiracy theory, and we've talked about this before. There are certain times within the United States history that the government has released an excess amount of dollars into the country. I think the CARES Act was $5 trillion or something like that.
No idea.
So,
Yeah, big number.
some crazy number like that. Ben will find it for us. But where did this money come from?
$2.2 trillion.
$2.2 trillion. They just printed it. But my conspiracy theory that's really at the top of this is they put money out so they could collect back, right? Because they know that people are going to fraudulently take this money. When in any of whether it's my grandfather's lifetime, our lifetime, that the government has given out millions, hundreds of thousands.
The crazy thing is you were eligible to get PPP money even though you owed back taxes. So a lot of our tax resolution clients that owe hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, they actually got PPP money. And if they were entitled to it.
Objectively, though, I think that for the purpose of what PPP was made for, I think that's fair.
Absolutely.
For the American
it was
economy.
payroll protection.
Yeah.
It wasn't for the employer.
No.
The intention of the PPP money was for the employee.
Yeah.
So to protect the payroll, that was the purpose of it. But I will tell you, a lot of these IRS revenue officers, They didn't know what PPP was. Much like I didn't know what PTO was, they didn't know what PPP was. And I don't even think they still understand it. And there
I
was
hear a lot of people say the PPE, the protection.
right. I hear that too. Yeah,
people are
right.
like,
I hear that. I hear that.
oh,
Screw up
I got
too.
the PPE. I'm like, oh, you got
a
a mask?
Yeah,
Yeah,
right, exactly. You got the
Yeah.
gloves. And so, but I heard there was one lady. This happened to be a state issue, and she said, well, your client owes unemployment tax, $50,000 or $60,000, and they got PPP money. And I said, do you know what PPP money is? And this was someone who I've known a long time. And I said, you know what PPP money is? What's the acronym for PPP? She had no idea what the 3P stood for. I said, well, if you don't know what that's going to stand for, and I was trying to be polite as best as I could be. And so if you don't know what PPP, the acronym, stands for, then you're probably not going to know what you were allowed to use the money for. So do you know what you were allowed to use the money for? Probably not, but you're throwing out a dig at our client because you went on some website to see who got PPP money, and you clearly probably, your boss is telling you to search that website to use that as a trigger or a dig,
Yeah.
right? But that's irrelevant to this conversation.
Yeah.
In fact, it's wrong and embarrassing that you're bringing that up, because it's irrelevant to the conversation 110%. In fact, it's terrible that you're bringing that up because you think that they should have spent their PPP money to pay back the unemployment, which they shouldn't have.
Yeah. I want to make a total topic change here, and I want to ask you, do you like living, because I think what's fascinating about, to me, people your age is you live through no technology and then you live with technology. What do you like better?
I like being able to say, hey, Siri, and I like the texting. I like being able to say, Alexa, turn on disco music. I like being able to say,
Alexa, off. Okay, you triggered it.
oh my gosh,
Alexa, off.
See, so certain things I actually like that. It makes my life a little bit easier. I like the app on my phone to open up the garage doors, right? I'm not kidding.
No, I know
me,
you're
like
not.
I'm like those things I like.
Yeah.
Do I like that I've got to DocuSign this and log into that and password this? No. As you well know.
What about from a social standpoint? More so than just a social standpoint.
I like Facebook. I look at Facebook every morning to see whose birthday it is. I do that, and if it's someone I know and I like, I'll wish them happy birthday. And sometimes people I haven't seen or talked to in years, and whether they see it or not, it's sort of cool to say happy birthday to someone that I went to camp with. So from a social standpoint, I like to see that.
Okay, that's fair.
The technology, it's got its pros and its cons. I probably don't use it as much as I should, but
yeah, I think you understand 1% of technology.
I would agree with you. Like, I don't even have the ChatGPT, app on my phone. I'm not the guy that goes on TikTok very much. Someone sends me a little link, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm not that guy. I'm more a little Instagram-ish, searching and scrolling now through things, and it passes the time on the toilet, really.
Yeah.
But I'm not that person that does that. I'm up for a good old fashioned, watching Top Gun 100 times, or the new Top Gun Maverick, or the new Beverly Hills Cop that's got a little bit of a Detroit twist to it. I'm hoping they come up with a Top Gun 3. So the technology piece, it's cool.
Do you know who Bushman is? The radio guy in Michigan?
Yeah, the Bushman.
He's the opening voice in the new Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah, I think I did know that. There's Mason in the Morning.
Yeah.
I know one of your favorites, Mojo in the Morning, baby.
Mojo
is great.
Yeah.
Real name is Tom.
Yeah.
By the way, shout out to Tom. We were at a bat mitzvah in Vegas a few months ago, and we've now become friends because he was also a guest at that bat mitzvah.
Yeah.
Cool guy. Love that guy. I think like the #1 radio
show
in the drive time market
Midwest,
or something.
Yeah.
Like some,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's nationally or just in the Midwest, but nicest guy on the planet.
I think I think it's Midwest. I think everyone laughs at me. Yeah, I'm sure you're gonna send this clip to Mojo now, but everyone
Can I
laughs at me.
videotape this clip about
Everyone,
it?
sure, you can.
Okay.
You know,
What is Mojo?
so yeah, people ask.
We're just talking about stuff, Mojo, and I'm literally live on
Yeah,
Maverick's
so
podcast,
so
and
we
I'm talking
do.
about Mojo.
So this is why I love the long formats of the podcast, because we get to do cool things and you really get to see sort of behind the scenes. But
So can you Google Mojo, Ben? Google Mojo.
yeah, Mojo in the morning. But
Mojo in the
people
morning.
ask, like, a lot of the times, oh, I'm always listening to something. Whether I literally religiously only listen to Mojo or Joe Rogan. Now, a lot of the times
I like Mojo better.
sometimes I don't give a shit about really what the topic is, what they're talking about. And you're going to send this to Mojo. The thing I love most about Mojo is the way that he hosts the show, right? For me, I've been doing this podcast for almost 4 years. So my takeaways a lot of the time, and the reason I listen, sure, it's for entertainment, but it's also because of what I can take away as a host of a podcast, listening to, no pun intended, some of the best of the best. And so Mojo in the Morning, for those of you that don't know, is a radio show that started off in Detroit, I think 25 years ago, maybe a little bit older, maybe a little bit younger, somewhere in that range. And then they expanded markets. They went to northern Michigan, they went to Ohio, and they're in a couple different markets around the Midwest. But he's been able to grow that show, even with people coming in and out of the show, because of the way that he hosts the show. And so that's, for me, why I listen to someone like a Mojo so often. I think it's a phenomenal show, well put together, well produced, but there's an element to Mojo in what he does, and that's the reason people listen. That's the reason it's the Mojo in the Morning show. Is
What are
because
the ratings, Ben?
It's been ranked as the top 5 morning show for multiple years in a row, and it's broadcasted across Arizona, Ohio, Florida, Virginia, Mississippi, Michigan,
wow.
as
Okay.
well as some other states.
And one thing you don't know, and I've got the text to prove it, when I said, Mojo, how do you go out of town? How do you travel with your wife or your kids? Because, that's a problem. I said, well, I'm going to take over as your guest host when you're out of town. He said, no problem. So I've got that in a text from Mojo. So I'm going to hold him to that.
Yeah.
That I want to be the co-host. I used to tell him that. Remember I had my radio show?
Yeah. Yeah.
The Levy Tax Help Show.
Yeah,
You said I put
yeah.
on my radio voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good morning, South Florida, and welcome
Yeah.
to the Levy Tax Help Show.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Right?
absolutely.
Anyhow, Mojo, enough about Mojo. But it's pretty
Mojo.
cool, though.
Yeah.
2 minutes
sure.
and 38 seconds of this is going to shout out to Mojo.
There you go.
Channel 955, baby.
I think it's WSNX Muskegon Grand Rapids and WVKD Toledo, if I'm not. I mean, I listen way too often. But again, well put together show, and I have a lot of takeaways from the host of that show to implement into this show. How to guide the conversation.
You should actually have
How
Mojo if you can do it. You should have him on.
I would love to have Mojo on. Mojo, I've looked up to you from a host perspective. You're welcome to come on the show anytime you want to come on. We'd love to have you on the show. But
He's a cool guy.
yeah. But so I guess the next place we could take the conversation is really something that people talk to me a lot about, and I know that I've heard them say it to you as well. And this is a little bit of a weird comment because I don't want it to come off in a narcissistic way, but it's just my life, and it's the truth. People ask me, like, you're young, how do you do this? And, when I was younger, even younger, right? I used to always be the youngest in the room, and now I'm only 25, but sometimes I'm not the youngest in the room. I'm just not. And I attribute a lot of that to the way that I was parented. And I know people have asked you before, like, I've heard it, how did you parent? I'm going to be a father. You have these sons and, they're great, whatever they say. To you, what was your parenting philosophy? Funny enough to me, I think that you didn't have one. I think you just just did whatever. Like, there was no method or reason behind, I don't want to call it the madness, but you get what I'm saying. And I think that's an aspect to it. But where did your parenting come from, and do you attribute it to anything, or is there just no? Like I said, I think there's just no method. It was just like, okay, I'm the same person I was before I had a kid.
Sort of. I don't want to say I just was winging it, but a couple things to try and answer your question seriously. I really feel that my parenting was complemented and completed when I met my wife. I'm not going to be disrespectful to my ex-wife because obviously I married her and we had you. So in the beginning,
And she's a hard worker too.
in the Michelle.
Both Michelles are hard
Yeah.
workers.
All right. By the way, ex Michelle, wife Michelle.
Yeah.
Thank you notes, luggage, towels. I got lucky with that. All stays
Same
the
names.
Same. Right. So, but I think that when I got divorced, seeing Michelle's work ethic, my wife Michelle, was a nice compliment. I was certainly attracted to the maternal component of your mom. She had 2 kids, one and a 6-year-old. But as far as parenting goes, I think a lot of the parenting for me, for you and for Jet, really I attribute to Michelle, to my wife. She did the majority of the parenting. I had a hard time saying no. I still have a hard time saying no. I just don't have the ability to say no. So a lot of that parenting came from her. And the other piece of this is I think my dad did a great job of raising me. So I'll sit there and I'll think, what would my dad have done? One of the things he did, which I think I've done to you and Jet, is I've given you guys the latitude. I've given you guys the ability to build my trust, whether it's drive a nice car, drive a fancy boat, silly materialistic things like that. I've given you guys the opportunity, and I've never worried. A lot of parents worry about that. I just don't. But those are materialistic. But I've also given you a lot of latitude. You come and go as you please. And one of the things I'd always say is, for you and with Jet, when you guys were 10 years old, I could say, and I've never gone there, but I could say, guys, you got to figure out how to meet me tomorrow in London. Figure out how to we were living in Michigan, figure out how to get from Detroit to London, be there tomorrow. Or it would probably better when you were 13 because then you had your own student credit card thing. But so I've always given you a lot of freedom, and I think you both have earned that responsibility. So my parenting skills came from the freedom that my dad gave me.
Yeah.
I wasn't the kid that got in trouble. I wasn't the kid that went out and did drugs. I wasn't the kid that was getting kicked out of school and was a problem. Not saying I never got a speeding ticket, not saying that I never had an issue in school and got suspended. But so I've always given you guys. So my parenting isn't quite winging it, but since you were 2, you were parented more so by Michelle than me. By far. And so that's the way where I see the parenting. And I can't tell you, the best compliment that any dad can get, any mom can get, is someone who walks up and says, "Oh my God, your kid's amazing."
Yeah.
I don't give a shit what they think about me. As long as they say your kid's amazing, that's the best compliment that I can get. But then it's proven, right? Whether it's you and the things you've achieved in your life, even the fact that you went to college and got into law school, and I know that was a path you didn't choose to take, but the fact that you studied your ass off for the LSATs, and I'll never forget where I was when you FaceTime me saying you got a great grade in the LSAT or you got accepted to law school. To me, those are life-changing moments. Jet, when you and I went to the airport 2 years ago, and we saw him do his solo on his 16th birthday, you said, "Holy shit, he's taken off on a plane at 16." Those are life-changing moments. And now to sit here, this is the epitome. To sit here and be interviewed by my 25-year-old son about life and business and parenting and my dad and just stuff in general, I mean, that's pretty damn cool. So it's so uncommon for me to take some time out of the day to do non-work stuff. I think in a roundabout way, this is work, right?
It's work for me very much.
Well, for you, it's work.
But I love it,
Right, and I'll say it publicly. I miss spending time with you. You don't live as close anymore, so
I live 45 minutes away.
I'll take what I can get.
Yeah.
And this is great. And to see you in action, right? The best of the best. I'll take credit for the name Maverick, which somehow in a roundabout way, I'll take credit for the podcast name, the Top Gun twist.
Yeah.
So, but it's incredible to see this and to see the Brinks cars and to see the Pathwater branded and to see the hats and the swag and the shirts and all the cool shit like that and the setup and seeing what you guys have done and achieved and the connections and the deals and the contracts and the motivation and just the experience you've had in business in the past 4 or 5 years is probably far more than most people may have until they're my age.
Yeah.
The contracts, the business opportunities.
The losses. I mean,
Well, yeah, right. I mean, they're
I
right.
think that's a big component of it. And listen, I didn't want to cut you off because I appreciate everything you're saying. I think the biggest part of it and that decision to leave law school is, probably the biggest decision I made as I planned 4 years of undergraduate studying social relations and policy and doing all that. But I think what I've learned most from is the losses. And the major one, I've talked about it on the first episode. I don't need to talk about it again, but I was 24 was last year. And I mean, yes, that money wasn't in my pocket, but you're talking tens of millions of dollars of a deal that I walked away from
Right,
because
it's a good move.
yeah, it was a great move. But,
Yeah.
how many people, even when they're 80 years old, can say that they had that kind of loss and got up? And that's the reason that this podcast is a thing right now. Had
Right.
that not happened, yes, the best of the best was a thing, but the new format, the 2 episodes per each guest, the educational aspect, we have our own app we're building right now
Right.
to put the short form on, the deal with Brinks, the deal with Pathwater. You're talking Brinks is one of the oldest companies in the world, 165 years old. They have over 76,000 employees, and their logo is on here. It's crazy. It
Right.
really is. It's crazy and it's cool. But I think the losses are what you learn the most from. At least I have at this point in time. But
Listen. Losses, yes, but they're just life experiences.
yeah, for
Right.
sure.
I'm not sure they're lost. We've spent money on advertising and it's been a bust.
Yeah.
We've spent money on things and it's not been great.
That's
We've had
life. You
employees.
learn.
Right.
Yeah.
That's just life. We've had employees that we spent a shit ton of money on and the guy didn't work out.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
moved him here from fucking Texas.
I mean, crazy shit. It's like unreal, right? But those are learning experiences, and you say you'll never do it again, and things like that happen. But for me, the parenting piece, again, 99% of that was Michelle. But anything else in a different world of how I believe the parenting should be done
yeah.
was my dad.
Mhm.
And was it right or wrong? My dad gave me all the freedoms in the world. And when I was a kid growing up, I was great up until I was like 13 years old. And this is one of the last stories that I'll share with you until you cut me off. But we led a pretty good lifestyle when I was a kid. And we went to the year right after my bar mitzvah probably was, we were at, a normal vacation for us was we went to the Beverly Hills Hotel. It was cool. We had a nice life when I was a kid growing up. And then, boom, my parents get divorced. And when I was 16 years old, I'm there saying, hey, Dad, I want to go to Florida for spring break. And I don't know what the tickets were back then to Florida, $99, whatever airline was, Northwest or whatever the airline before that was. And he's like, I don't know. We're in the middle of a divorce. All the money's locked up and locked down. So I went from, a Beverly Hills hotel vacation to, oh my God, my dad and I are living in a 2-bedroom apartment with rented furniture. And that was how I was from 16 years old until I was literally just about your age.
Yeah.
So I had 9 years of rented furniture and barely being able to put gas in the car and working, teaching tennis and Joe Cornell and a camp here, getting the business started. And so those parenting skills where my dad gave me the foundation, right? And so, I always will ever say, I can attribute everything good about me to my father, and everything that's not so good about me, it's my fault. And that's the way I roll.
Yeah, no, and I think being young and seeing your family have everything. You have a family, your parents are together, you're staying at the Beverly Hills Hotel. I think there's a famous story, not famous, but funny story that we always tell about. You had dinner with Phil Collins at the Beverly Hills Hotel.
And played tennis with Victoria Principal.
Okay.
You don't even know who she is.
No, I don't know
Some
who she
famous
is.
model back in the day.
Okay, great. But then you lose it all, sort of thing, and then it gives you that motivation to earn it back and then 100 times more. And I think people go through life like this because they're scared and they just go through life stagnant. They don't take any risk. They don't do anything to take a risk. And I think the biggest takeaway I've had from this podcast was with a guy named Brad Olashansky. You know him, creator of what I call probably America's most infamous car country clubs. He founded M1 in Detroit. He left M1. He is now on his own doing the Motor Enclave. They just finished construction in Tampa. I think he raised, Ben, if you want to look it up, because I think it's an impressive number, $330 million, some crazy number in a raise for a car country club. But I asked a question, what do you wish you knew when you were in your early 20s? And the thing he said was take more risks, right? He took the risk to build M1, to leave his career as an attorney. But to put it into perspective for people that are currently in their 20s, no family, no kids, that is the time to take the risk. You have no mortgage, you have no kids that you have to take care of, right? Your bills are at a minimum, and those are the time you take the risk, but people don't. I think they don't for various reasons, mental reasons, they're uncertain. And I think the worst thing that happens is you can just have to restart, and that's it. But you were able to see kind of this, okay, we had it and then we didn't.
Yeah, mine was though. I took it all at once. I had a kid coming.
Yeah, I know.
I had a
I know.
house.
I
had a
know.
business growing.
I know.
Starting.
I know.
So
Well, I
like,
was saying from the perspective of your parents, right? Like
oh yeah, right. No,
that perspective,
yes.
because that's not only was that a financial, mental, emotional, like everything included wrapped up into one, especially at that age, can be challenging.
And I'll tell one thing for your younger listeners. You know me, I don't spend money on like myself a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't spend money on clothes. In fact, the jeans I have on are literally, really inexpensive jeans. My socks are Amazon. Yep, my shoes are some fancy brand, and my t-shirt is Psycho Bunny. I mean, what does this cost me? $50-$60. I don't have on like the fancy stuff like that.
I would differ in other areas of your body.
I
but
agree with that, but for the most part, I'm not that guy that spends a lot.
It's because I got you into watches.
On
though.
fancy clothes, right? Okay, well that's right. But so I think that just saving more. That the youth has the time.
Yeah.
So use time on your advantage. Had I been able to put aside, I don't know the number, but we'll just call it $500 a week, or $500 a month is fine, right? Just $125 a week. When I was 25 years old and now I'm 50, imagine what that math would have been.
Yeah.
And so I really think that that's something that the youth should think about is
Compound
spend
interest.
less and save more.
Yeah.
Don't go out to that fancy dinner. Don't do this, don't do that. And when you're my age, it's going to be that much better. And it's so hard to have that vision. And I think that that's a problem in society too. But I'll tell you, I loved it. I want to, again, just give you a huge compliment.
Thank you.
Obviously, I'm your dad, so
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of you and Jet. I'm your biggest fan, and forever will be your biggest fan.
Yeah.
But this is really an interesting experience to have this interview to talk about just life and parenting and my dad. And I talk about my dad all the time. I talk about him more. People like when they lose their loved one, it's tough to talk about. Me, I love talking about my dad. In fact, it's funny, for part of the day today, over your head, there's some trees, and I've been seeing this bird sitting there for most of the day. So I this weird thing that the dead people reincarnate as a bird. It sounds weird, but it's comforting for me. So I don't give a shit what you think.
Whatever.
But it's cool, and I've been seeing this bird literally sitting there, like listening to us talk, and I would bet you that's somehow my dad listening to us talk, and there's a Jewish word called gvelling. It means like he's just like smiling and grinning from ear to ear.
Yeah.
So
Yiddish
happy
word,
and so proud.
I think.
Yeah, I guess.
I think it's
don't know.
Yiddish.
You're the super Jew. I'm like the okay
Something
Jew.
like that. I wouldn't say super Jew.
No, you're way more Jewish than I am. But I think this has been phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud of you. And
Thank you.
I want some Brinks swag. I want
We'll
some
do
best
it.
of the
We'll do it.
best
We'll do it.
swag.
No, and I think too, something I want to go back to and touch on is the parenting style that you gave to me. There is just something to be said about the freedom that's given. It's something I think about often because number one, like I loved having a young dad, right? I absolutely love that. And I think my generation now, everyone has kids in their 30s. I don't want to do that. Like I want to have a kid probably a little bit later than you had me, but similar. I do because I love having a young dad when I see other dads and they're not young, they're not as mobile, they're not able to do certain things. But
Oh, well, you're not close to having a kid.
I mean, if I had a kid when you had me, we're talking 2.5 years.
Okay.
So I think we're
Ben.
Uncle Ben.
Clipping it.
No, but
Is the
seriously,
battery about to run out of these cameras?
the freedom that has been given to me is something I think about all the time because you are way more laid back than I am. I am like OCD in the term in the way of this needs to be this way, this needs to be that way. I like it like this, I like it like that, which is a positive sometimes, and I've been learning that balance because sometimes it really affects my life in a negative way. And it's too much planning, it's too much overdoing it, just go with the flow. And it's something where it's like that balance that you gave to me. I mean, some things I look back on, I'm like, holy shit, that was crazy. But we all have those stories as a kid of like stupid things we did. Where I'm going with all of this is the freedom is the number one thing that I appreciate that you gave to me, and still
Trust.
freedom. And freedom came with the trust, obviously, but having the ability to go and live in, I think something is, we talked about this, insurance, right? We need to get insurance. You're not going to do it. You're going to tell us to do it. And then it's like we learn the process as we go through it.
Right, I agree, and I think that it's something that my father gave me. He gave me that freedom and the independence, and really just the autonomy, the autonomy to make these decisions, independently, where he didn't really have much oversight. And for the most part, I think I made pretty good decisions. A divorce, you could say that's a bad decision, right? Marriage didn't work out, but it happened. So whether you learn from that or you learn from a business experience, you learn from certain things and you just grow from those. But my dad gave me that freedom. I think I've given you and your brother that same freedom
100%,
to be independent. And the more independent you are, the more worldly you are. I was just out with someone last week, and the dad was telling me how the kid like he's worried how the kid's gonna get from point A to point B. Like he's so introverted to maybe an extreme.
Yeah.
And so I'm lucky that my kids are worldly. I'm lucky my kids are independent. I worried about you guys every day, right? I mean, do I look at your location? Sometimes, right? Not always, but I like that I can look at your location so I know where you are.
Yeah.
That's a technology thing I look at, by the way.
Yeah.
I look at that. But I've given you guys that independence, and you've never, you've never given me a reason to ever question that.
Yeah.
And I think that's allowed you to grow and mature. You could do pretty much about anything. Got a mortgage, got a car loan. What about a paycheck?
2 car loans,
and insurance, life insurance, retirement planning. I mean, all just things that I don't think a lot of people are cognizant of or even have any, they're not scratching the surface at your age of those things.
Yeah.
So when you become independent, you have to learn about that, signing a lease, getting a mortgage.
That's what this podcast hopes to achieve, right?
Right.
To give you the basic understanding of those concepts so you
Right.
can do.
And a
go
lot of
and
kids
do them.
don't know that. And I have a lot of my friends or acquaintances who have kids who are either your age or younger, and they're clueless.
Yeah.
It's sad. I don't know what little box they got kept in, or maybe it's the mom or the dad, or maybe the kid, or maybe the environment, or maybe both. But for me, I'm blessed that we taught you how to do those things.
Yeah.
Like, you've had your role in certain things. Jed will do his thing, and handle certain things even when you were younger. Go and take care of the cell phones for the office, or whatever function, it is at the office. You deal with the insurance, right, at the office. And so there's, all these like things that you've grown up doing. Or how many times have we talked just as a family, what's our next advertising? Should it be radio? Should it be a TV? And we talk about these things as a family.
Yeah.
I don't have my dad to talk about it with anymore, so who am I going to go to? I'm going to go to my wife and my 2 sons. That's all I got.
Yeah. Ben, I'm really curious.
Lance, by the way.
Ben, I'm really curious from your perspective. Obviously you're here to fact check and you're the producer of this show and do all the background and the marketing and stuff like that. But, what is your perspective on, you've gotten to know my family for the past couple of years, the dynamic, like what do you take away from it?
I think it's very unique. And I think it does come down to the autonomy that you're talking about. There's not a lot of kids who have like, I guess, the trust from the parents to be able to do these things.
Yeah.
And so, being exposed to all these different aspects of real life at a young age allows you to grow and mature that much quicker. And that's one of the reasons that initially, Maverick and I's friendship ironically started in this same house, 3 years ago on
As
the
a
podcast.
chef, I have
Yeah.
you down as Ben Chef in my phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we've come a long journey, but initially that was one of the first things I recognized about Maverick. And, as I've gotten to know Lawrence, over, the past couple of years, it's the same kind of thing. That level of autonomy and trust has built success, in both Maverick and Jet, I think.
Yeah.
And that's something that I strive to achieve, with my kids one day. And I think that
You're
there's
not
a lot
having
of
kids
life.
anytime soon either, Ben.
No time soon. Nothing in the future for Ben.
Got to find a girlfriend first, Ben.
Come on, they might be listening.
But listen, talk about Ben. I don't know Ben other than through you.
Yeah.
But you've come away with us on a couple of vacations now, and independent, young entrepreneur. This whole setup that you see, all the lights and the cameras and the mics and the podcast and the this and the mic check one and clapboard one. I mean, all that, you set this whole thing up.
Yeah,
right?
Ben is very much like that. I mean, he's my exact age. He bought a place in Miami before COVID hit.
Right.
So
you made a nice little nest egg that you got. So again, you guys are the American dream, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
And you should be happy for what you've achieved.
Yeah.
Happy for your, you got a head on your shoulders.
Yeah.
You got some sense out there. You got some street smarts. You got some business smarts. You got it all. So,
And I think that right there is really what I want people to understand. This is going to be one of our first episodes. It's a very intimate episode for me. Conversations that I've frankly never had with my dad, we're having today. But I want you all to understand that because I think there's this level of perception, right? Like in this podcast, I'm going to be an educator. People are going to learn. I'm going to bring on industry experts. I want to be the driver of this message that this generation can do better, be better, but the tools aren't easily accessible. And that's my goal here. I want to give you the tools that you can create whatever you want from it and achieve whatever you want from it and connect with the people that come on this show.
that was one of your things was, it was the shit you didn't learn in school, or they didn't teach you in school, whatever that was. And that's what I was trying to explain to someone the other day. Whenever I explain this, I probably don't explain it right, what the podcast does and what the whole Brinks and Pathwater thing is. But the concept behind it, the way at least I explain it, is this is to teach that younger generation the things you didn't learn in school that you should have learned in school, no matter if it's taxes or insurance or getting license plate tabs on your car or
Nutrition,
getting a mortgage.
eating.
That too. You harp on me about that. I did with my dad, right? And right. So it's great. Happy and proud of you.
No, thank you. Well, with that being said, I'll ask the final question, and that is, Dad, what do you wish you knew when you were in your early 20s?
I wish I knew. It's a great question. I'm really usually not at a loss for words, but I wish I knew how to save more money. I wish I knew how to put away and invest more. I think the business skills, they come as they are. I was trying to make some funny joke about like the thing on a ketchup bottle where you can like take the little thing and poke it and then put it back on and squirt it out the right way.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I see all these little life hacks, but I really wish I knew what I know now, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I wish I knew, I wish I was in the mindset when I was 25 compared to 53, 54 almost, about how to save more and spend less and invest wiser, right? I wish I would have bought a house even younger, but I did it at 28, which is pretty damn young.
Nowadays,
right?
people can't even buy homes in
Right,
their
so
20s.
But pissing away money in rent is just, it just makes no sense to me. Buying office buildings, I bought the one when you were born, and this one in Florida was just a home run.
Yeah.
So I think real estate's been a really good investment. And I wish I would have been able to know what I know now or think differently. But I couldn't be happier.
Yeah.
I couldn't be happier with my choices. Couldn't be happier with my wife. Couldn't be happier with my sons. Couldn't be happier with everything that's been out there. Couldn't be happier with a guy like Lance. That's the other thing too. I think surrounding yourself with the right people is huge.
Yeah, for
So I
sure.
wish I probably would have done things differently with who I surrounded myself in business with, the right staff as an example. Like having Lance was a forever game changer, a life changer for everyone.
I wonder who told you to bring Lance into the business.
That would be you.
Yeah, at a
Absolutely.
young age.
Right. No, absolutely.
At a young age. No.
Yeah.
What I say to you is that number one, I know because your father has passed away, your mother that you never had a relationship with passed away. You know, I'm proud of you as your son. And I know you don't get to hear that often from other people, but I think you should know that I see that every single day. And I see what you've built, and I respect the hell out of it. I respect the hell out of you. I think in business, you and I butt heads a lot. But I think that's because we're coming from two totally different generations, totally different ways of doing business. And I think, funny enough, one of your biggest benefits and your biggest faults in your life are that you've never had a real corporate job working for anyone else. I think it's one of the greatest things that's helped you grow. And I also think it's one of the most negative things that sometimes held you back a little bit. But all in all, I think that you should know that I'm proud of you and that I love you and I'm thankful for the ability to do what I do, right? What I do on a daily basis, yes, have I made money and done these things, but these seeds that I'm planting, all the businesses that I'm part of, they're long term, right? And again, that goes back to being in the position I am of could I necessarily do these things if we didn't have a family business? Probably not. I could probably make it work and have figured it out, but would it have been, I don't want to say easy because easy is not the right word because I put in a lot of work. I think it's more so the stars aligning. And I think timing is everything on that regard. But, I really, obviously, everything that I do is possible because of what I got to see you build and the people that you've gotten to bring me around, taking me to meetings at a young age, letting me fall asleep at the table at important meetings, hearing conversations. As much as sometimes it sucked, you were on the phone on vacations or at a sports game, I knew you were doing it for us. And it never felt like you weren't there. You were always there, sort of thing. And so, I want to say thank you for coming on the show, but also thank you for being my father. Thank you for being you. I'm proud of you. I know Papa Lou is proud of you. And I know everyone else that knows you from a young age is proud of you and sees where you are now. And I will say, I think one of the funniest thing is you are the least materialistic person that I know, or of any people that I know, but you like it because it has shown you, I think, what you were able to achieve. Do you care about the cars that are in the garage? I don't think you give a shit. I think your favorite car was a Ram pickup truck that we used to have. But I think you like to see that you were able to achieve that. And I think same with whether it's homes, whether it's toys, no matter what it is, I don't think you care about the actual thing like I care, right? Whether I care about certain things, weapons, watches, clothes, I used to like a lot more. I couldn't really care about clothes now. I like to look nice, of course, and be presentable. But, but again, experience, right? Like I tell people this all the time. If there's anyone that shopped and he's gonna knows this the best from me being in high school and getting yelled at for shopping, I've done it all. And is it cool? Not really. It wasn't worthwhile. I thought back then that was the cream of the crop, right? It was really not. Don't get me wrong. I like nice things. It's why I work hard. But again, like I said, I think you should be proud of yourself too. And there's times actually your great aunt, she has said something before to you that I've always said, and I say to
My
certain
aunt?
people, yeah, and she says, take time to smell the roses.
Oh, she texts me every morning, literally at 7:00.
Take time to smell
Every
the rose.
morning. Sometimes it's that. Takes a picture off the balcony. She was like a mom to me.
Yeah, and that's true because I think
She's still alive.
so many
obviously.
people get caught up in the hustle and bustle of things and don't take time to look around at what they achieved. Like that's me all the time. I always feel like I'm behind. I always feel like I'm not doing enough or I'm not here.
Mhm.
But then I really look back on what I've accomplished and I have a hell of a lot more to go. I've barely scratched the surface, but you need to smell the roses. And I think you deserve to smell the roses a lot more than you do, honestly. But I think, again, that's the thing that keeps you young and keeps you you. And so for that point of
Pickleball.
it, pickleball for sure. Gronk, where are you? Come on.
Call him. Eli, Rob.
Yeah, call him. Ben, can you call him?
Ben, get him on the phone.
The last thing that I want to do, I know I said we were going to be done. Ben, do we have time on the cameras? I know we're looking at battery life here. Because as you guys can see, we're a traveling studio. We bought the best equipment because we wanted you to have the best quality.
Because it's the best of the best.
Exactly. So we are a traveling studio. So sometimes we have restrictions. Sometimes our framing isn't going to be the best, but it's because we want to get the best guest on. And therefore, we need to be able to go to the guests. So we'll be traveling around like I talked about in episode
Coming
0.
to a city near you.
Exactly. One thing I want to do, Ben, I'm doing this on the fly too, so we'll see. Maybe go to like YouTube Shorts. I want to get some reaction videos out of you, Dad, and just like show you what's trending online. So that way, I want to just get your reaction about certain things that happen
Should I
online.
put my glasses on?
And today, those are sunglasses.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah, you bought me readers, goddammit.
Yeah.
I'm fighting the readers.
And they work though, don't they?
I can't stand them.
Throw the headphones on.
All right.
Headphones?
Yeah, headphones on.
All right.
More and more people are starting to become concerned about their plastic waste. That's why having a fun, refillable water bottle has become such a popular trend. So let me introduce you to our official beverage sponsor of the Best podcast, Path, a sleek and completely recyclable aluminum water bottle that is also BPA free and refillable. Refilling your Path bottle not only reduces plastic waste, but also contributes to becoming carbon positive after only 4+ refills. Since 2015, Path has been on a mission to end single-use plastic. It's not about drastic changes. It's about simple lifestyle switches. By educating people and encouraging them to hashtag refill it, Path shows that every refill counts in the fight against plastic waste. It's a small step that can make a huge difference. You can find Path in over 55,000 retail stores worldwide, including stores like Whole Foods, Target, CVS, Sprouts, and many more. Path is also present in airports, gyms, schools, and has extended its reach to travel, fitness, national parks, hospitality, and healthcare sectors. To learn more, visit drinkpath.com or follow them on Instagram at Pathwater. Now, let's jump back into the episode.
This is a super viral clip right now.
Yeah.
It's been making the
Have
rounds.
you seen the Hawk Tua girl?
Oh my God, yeah.
The fade.
She called me yesterday.
Did she? What'd she say?
I got some tax problems.
All
All right, we're
Pull
live.
a little more cord. You can pull cord. We got cord, I think.
I'm good. All right.
All right.
All right, first clip.
Hawk
That's one
Tui.
move in bed that makes a man go crazy every time.
Oh,
that
you
do.
gotta give it
I
back.
can't hear it that much.
And spit on that thing.
Spit on that thing. I saw it. I see it all over Instagram. The Hawk Tui girl.
Hawk Tui?
Hawk Tua. What is it? Hawk Tui girl. Yeah, I know her. What do I think about it?
Yeah.
What I think about it is it's crazy shit that a girl like that's going to make a shit ton of money over something so small. But that's,
You think she is going to make a shit ton of money?
I think she probably has made some money. No, I mean, I'm just guessing.
She
Yeah.
just got signed.
Yeah, I'm just guessing that's going to make some money, like just something that's like viral like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me another one. But yeah, I'm familiar with Miss Hawk Tui.
Just scroll.
This reminds me of what are those three guys, the jokesters, the pranksters,
Impractical Jokers?
and practical jokers? Yeah, I like those guys.
What about them?
Nothing, just they're just like internet sensations, but TV guys or the reality show people.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Impractical Jokers. Those guys are sort of funny.
Yeah. They're funny. Wait, go back to shorts though. Let's just literally go through them. Like who cares?
We're not logged in right now, so we don't have any.
Oh, so recommendations are off.
Just turn it.
Okay.
Yeah, turn them on. Let's see here.
The dance ones are
Like,
great.
what do you think of this? Like, to me, this is fucking stupid. I'll tell you.
Actually, I think that girl's a good dancer. I happen to like dancing, so I would
Yeah,
see
you
it.
always send me
There's
the
actually
dancing.
a dad one with a son and his daughter that I see. That's cool. These things, Like the makeup things, ridiculous. Get that off. Like I don't get that.
The
at all.
makeup.
Whatever she was just doing, the flag girl. I don't know. That didn't really throw me. Some of those, like I don't even know what that is.
This is
And
mad.
But you understand, like, again, like, let's use Olivia as an example. That is modern day marketing. They're not putting on makeup for fun.
I understand that. I just don't get it. But maybe I'm just too old. Like my generation has a hard time getting that.
I think that's false. I think you have a hard time getting
Maybe
that.
I do. Yeah, I don't
Because
have
I
an
think
ATM
like
card.
Michelle, she orders all that shit off the videos she sees.
All right, well there you go. So it works. Maybe it's just me. I mean, I've never ordered something. Actually, I take it back. I think I've
ordered.
ordered one thing.
Yeah.
I mean, those things are sort of like I'll watch that. It's entertainment value.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I've learned something. The only
No.
thing I have learned is like those little life hacks, like the ketchup bottle and
Yeah.
the this or what's that thing? You know what's trending for me now is drinking the coffee to lose the weight. Have you seen that? No. Oh my God! Have you guys not seen that? It's all over the internet.
No.
You kidding me? The drink coffee to lose weight. It's all over the
scared
internet.
what we're gonna get on YouTube.
It's literally one of the biggest trending thing.
Let's see what
Well,
my
that's
greatest
gross,
enemy,
that girl,
Dr.
but
Ricky Brown,
that's
is up to.
I mean,
So you
no,
take
no,
a
but
half lemon, some
it's
coffee,
drink
some
coffee
hot
to
water.
lose weight.
That doesn't
Yeah,
make
this
you
doctor is saying
smaller.
that's not
All
true.
there's like mushroom coffee or something.
Oh yeah, the mushroom coffee.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something like that.
This shit's not true. You need to go to the gym and eat right.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. What do you think of Ozempic?
I'm a wimp. I don't take drugs. I don't like doing any of that false stuff. I don't like losing weight the fake way. Not into it. I believe there's going to be side effects. I've got friends that take it. Not my thing. Not into that at all. You know me. I don't even like to get my blood taken. Like it's not my thing.
Interesting.
Don't buy into that Ozempic. No, I'm not gonna lose weight the fake way.
You think that's the fake way?
Yeah, 100% it's the fake way. Do it diet and natural and stay in shape. And yeah, the Ozempic thing, I don't buy into that at all.
Huh.
I don't. I don't.
Interesting.
I don't buy into any of that. No.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well, I think we got enough reactions out of you. They're pretty funny. I mean, we can make this a continuing little.
I like
segment
to
that we
come
do.
on again. That's silly. That's nonsense.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
we're on a raw algorithm with no input right now. So this is
Yeah.
what random, someone
Yeah,
who's
this is-
never been on YouTube before is
No,
being shown.
I'll tell you, like for me, I think like to advertise homes, it comes up on my feed in drone video. Like I find that useful. I think like home tours are cool.
Yeah. Do you understand at your age the modern way of marketing? Like the makeup thing, the comment you make there to me is so interesting because
No, I don't get it.
like
But you're asking the wrong guy.
no, but that's why I'm asking you because what doesn't make sense to you if someone you buy billboards, you like to buy billboards, put your face on them with your phone number.
Yeah, that's
right?
my marketing.
Why do you buy them?
To get business.
No, but okay. My point that I'm trying to get to is where is that business coming from?
The person driving by.
Okay. And what dictates the price of a billboard
The location.
more so than the location? I guess in hand with the location.
The traffic count?
Exactly. Now, if you're a brand looking to push a product,
No, I get it. This is just a new way of marketing. It's no different than we evolved from direct mail to a billboard to TV to SEO and
yeah, but so then how doesn't that make sense to you?
I'm just saying I personally don't. Like I know people come to us from online. It's just not me. That's just not me. I'm archaic like that. But I'm sure there's plenty of
But you
people.
understand it.
I get it. We spend a shit ton on advertising. We spend a lot on our online presence. We spend a lot on our search engine optimization. We just do.
Yeah.
So I get it. I personally just am not into it, but I get why we do it. It's the way of the world these days. So I think we've tried to evolve with times from the days of the radio show, which you suggested we pull back on, which we did, and we took that budget and we repurposed it to another form of marketing, and it's worked.
Yeah. And what do you think about social media in general? You think it's a pro, a con?
I think it's the way of the world. I think social media is just the way of the world, and you just got to get used to it. And to me, I probably use it more like for humor,
Yeah.
and for like kicks and giggles, and I'll send funny videos to my friends, and I barely know how to send an Instagram DM and slide it in my DM.
I wouldn't say you barely know how to.
I really barely know how to do it, but like for me, it's purely social. Like there's nothing I find business about it, but I get it. It's a business. But for me personally, and again, maybe that's archaic and
Yeah.
it just is what it is. And maybe ask me this question in 2 years from now, and I may have a different answer for you. Right. And right. I was always like beholden to the direct mail. And just as I think we're going to ramp that down literally yesterday,
Yeah.
and I mean yesterday, a nice, sizable client, nice guy, how'd you hear about us? Got a mail piece.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God. So I go back and I tell them the stories about me licking the stamps at the kitchen table.
Yeah. Licking the envelopes, not the stamps.
Well, sometimes you did have the peel and stick stamp, but that was after. Back in the day, you actually lick the stamp
Oh,
to
wow.
put the stamp on the envelope.
Yeah, that was before my time when I would help.
Could have been, yeah.
Yeah, before my time.
I used to get the rolls of stamps. Actually, you did the peel and stick thing.
Oh, here we go.
But-
What is this?
The stats for just usage.
Multitasking?
Yeah, usage on social media. Gen Z spends an average of 2 hours and 55 minutes.
What gen am I?
You're in between Gen X and baby boomers who average an hour 22 to an hour to 40 minutes
What's
respectively.
the threshold for Gen X? I literally don't know.
40 minutes to an hour?
No, he's saying
No,
age.
what's the age? Gen X?
Oh, the age for Gen X is 42 to 57.
Yeah, I'm X.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever.
But I
I'm
mean,
a good Gen X pickleball
you spend
player.
at least an hour on social media.
A day?
Yeah.
I'm not. I mean, listen, maybe in the bathrooms.
Yeah, I'm saying total. More than an hour.
I don't know that if it's an hour a day, that would be a lot. And if I was doing that, I'd be upset at myself.
Throw me your phone. I'm gonna tell you how much time.
I don't
You're
know.
about to be real upset with yourself.
Possible, but I also gotta get us to a real important meeting. So I may be calling it a wrap with one of those clapboards here in a minute.
Hold on a second.
But still, do you have any luck getting Gronk on the phone?
Hold on a second. Yesterday, Monday, July 8th. Let's do.
All right.
Oh, actually, okay. Your times are better than I had thought. You're only on Instagram for 11 minutes,
That's probably about right.
and you're on Facebook for only 3 minutes. I
That's
am wrong.
exactly right.
I own
Yeah.
up to it. I am
On
wrong.
a weekend, it may be slightly higher, but it's not going to be drastically higher. I don't spend that much time on it. I just
Yeah,
don't.
wow. You
Those are
really,
impressive stats,
Those are
honestly. In
impressive.
2024 to be
I just
3
don't.
minutes.
Throw me that phone back. I just don't.
All right. Nice catch.
I just don't. Pickleball hands, baby. I just don't. But again, it's
yeah.
those are my stats.
All right, but yeah, we'll wrap this up. We
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Proud of you. Love you.
thank
Great.
you, love you. We will be
1-800
doing
tax levy.
Yeah, 1-800 tax levy, levytaxhelp.com.
Don't fear a levy, hire a levy, and you want a levy on your side, not one against you. Into that camera angle there.
And I was gonna wait, and to that camera angle, don't.
Fear a levy, hire a levy.
Oh, you said that one already.
Yeah.
Oh,
You want
I
a
missed
levy on
that.
your side, not one against you. Don't fear a levy, hire a levy.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. I was waiting
1-800
for it.
tax levy.
I was waiting for it. We will do more of these. You'll be back on. My plan is like when we do our guys trips all over, Ben and I will bring all the equipment and we can set up. I think how many? We have like 6 microphones.
Yeah,
We have a
That
lot.
would be funny as shit.
Yeah.
The boat trip or the snowmobile trip
Yeah.
or the whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, we just like all sit down.
But we
and
got to
people
lug all
can-
this gear.
Yeah,
That means we got to check bags. I'm an anti-check bag guy.
I know. Well, I
You're
check
not friends with us at the airport.
Yeah, I check a lot of bags.
Yeah, no, it's not my.
All right. Well, a big thank you to Brinks and the Brinks Armored Account. As always, they are a title sponsor. Big shout out to them. Big shout out also to Pathwater, official beverage sponsor. Those two make the show possible, and we really appreciate their support. And you should go and open up a Brinks Armored account, and you should go and get some Pathwater. You can customize a Pathwater online with your own logo. If you have a party coming up, you can do it there. And that's it. Thank you, Dad.
Yeah, Briggs, thanks again. We know you as the Armored Car Company, but you do a lot more than that, which is pretty cool even for my generation. And drink a lot of water so you don't have a kidney stone.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody.
That's a wrap, guys. Thanks. Loved it.
Thanks.